Hello and welcome to the Illinois School of Professional Psychology. My name is Dr. Tina Simmons, and I run the enrollment process here at ISPP. And I've been with ISPP since 2009, so I'm very excited to get to work with you here in a little bit. Thanks for joining the program overview. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Alrighty, so what we are looking at is what I like to call my program overview. And really, it's just detailed information about the PsyD program in clinical psychology at the Illinois School of Professional Psychology at National Louis University. So, sort of lesson one, that is our full name. It's a mouthful, but you'll want to call us ISPP or the Illinois School of Professional Psychology because ISPP has been around since 1976. And we definitely want to make sure that we're holding on to the legacy name while recognizing that we are also a part of National Louis University. And these slides are going to be made available. They're on our website, and they are also as a part of the application process in Psychology Cast, but I will walk you through them now. And again, as I mentioned, we are a part of National Louis University, and National Louis University is an inclusive, innovative community providing educational opportunities that inspire and empower all learners as they prepare for and advance in meaningful lives and productive careers. So you can see some of the mission there from National Louis. And when you do receive these slides from me, this is a video here that will introduce you, but this is outside of our 122 South Michigan campus. So, who is ISPP? Again, the Illinois School of Professional Psychology. So, we were founded in 1976 as one of the first PsyD programs in the country. So, we are among the oldest PsyD programs. Of course, we are APA accredited, and during our last site visit, we did receive the full 10 years of APA accreditation. We joined National Louis University in 2019, and NLU has this fantastic, nearly 140-year history of training. And NLU has been around since 1886. So, needless to say, we're very happy to be a part of such a storied institution. And ISPP has over 1,800 alumna worldwide that are working as psychologists. Now, I included here what I call some of my fast facts because I know folks are looking at a lot of programs typically, and I want to make sure that you see some of the pieces that I think make our program unique and that are quick call out. So, one of the things students often ask me is how many students are in the program. As of this fall, of fall 2025, we have about 200 students in the program total. And each year, every fall, we have one start a year and we bring in another 50 students. The program itself is 112 credit hours total. And apps taken, this is based on last year's information. We took around 265 apps again for those 50 students to start the program. Within the cohort, about 44% of our incoming students identified as BIPOC, and the average age was 26 years old. We had over half of our cohort come here to Chicago for the PsyD program, and 56% of the cohort was out of state, and 38% of those entered with a master's degree. So you do not need a master's degree to join our program. We do often accept students straight from undergrad. Now, what we offer is what's called this Practitioner-Scholar model. And what we mean by that, it does not mean we don't like research. We still want you to be able to understand and consume research. We still love research, of course, and you will have to do a research project as a part of your PsyD. But we like to take that research and then apply it to working with clients. How can we use this to use better informed care and to use evidence-based practice? And so our training model is grounded in theory and research, and we do focus on some of these more experiential elements as we're training our students. So what we mean by experiential is we're using classroom exercises. So you might be doing a dyad, kind of like what they look like they're doing here on my screen. We also task you with personal reflection. I always say to my applicants that this is the type of program where you're the tool to help facilitate change. So you're not just going to be able to come to school and passively take notes. You will be transformed as a part of this program, and that's the idea. With that, though, comes a lot of personal reflection. So we will often ask you to reflect back on your own experiences, your biases, your privilege, and how those things might come out in a therapeutic relationship. Of course, we also have supervised field experience. I will, of course, get into the training process as well. But in addition to classes and research, of course, you will also have practicum and internship. And one of the things that I think really helps our program stand apart is our faculty. Our faculty are very committed and dedicated to their students. And I think we see it more of as this mentorship model. So it's not this great divide, us versus them, where students don't know who their faculty are. It really is a collaborative environment. And I'll explain, how we incorporate some of those experiences here in a little bit once we look at the schedule. Within the PsyD program, we do have concentrations. They are optional. Currently, we have 4 concentrations. We have client-centered and experiential psychotherapies. We have health psychology, trauma psychology, and child and adolescent psychology. They are optional, so you are welcome to declare one. What's nice is that adding a concentration does not increase your time in the program. And what it does, it just basically streamlines your electives. So say like your child and adolescent, all of your electives then would fall under that umbrella. We would also try and get you training experiences that align with that population if you were child and adolescent. You would also try and write your dissertation dealing with that population as well. And then when you walk away, you have a PsyD in clinical psychology with a concentration in child and adolescent psychology, which can be very attractive to internships and employers when they're looking at folks and seeing that they have that much specific experience with a particular population. Now, there's something to be said too for having more of a broad experience and a broad training. And it's totally okay if you're not exactly sure what concentration you want or if you want a concentration. What you would do then if you did not have a concentration is select your electives based on what is interesting, based on what you want to study, based on what's being offered, and sort of tailor your experience there. I think it's good for applicants to have an idea about what they like to do, what population, what setting, how does that look, what does your career look like, and then understand that it's okay if that changes as you're in school. And it's completely common for that to happen. You might not know now what it is you want to do, but you want to help people. You want to be a psychologist. And a part of our job really is to help students figure that out and tailor their experience to get them to a really solid career that's very fulfilling. I also get asked if you can have more than one concentration, and the answer is not really. We don't recommend it. You would have to pay out of pocket, and it would take you longer to do any additional credits outside of the 112. So instead of having 2 concentrations, what we would say is don't have a concentration, and instead, for example, take trauma, 2 classes in trauma, and then a couple classes in child and adolescent, or whatever your interests are. So I would say choose one concentration or not at all. It's very common for students to not have a concentration. I would say about a third of our students have one and the rest do not. Now, there is also a Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology. This is not a freestanding master's, so you would not be able to apply for that outright here at ISPP, but it is embedded within the PsyD program. Reason being, we really want to make sure that our students are getting recognized for having done 2 years in the program. So this does come after your second year. You don't need to do anything extra. You just need to fill out the paperwork so that the registrar knows to pull your transcripts and audit them and make sure you've done everything. You can also walk if you choose to. So you could have a graduation after your Master's of Arts in Clinical Psychology, as well as then after your PsyD. It's also important to know that the Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology is not necessarily designed to lead to licensure because it's not a counseling program, right? It's more of a master's along the way. So what does the schedule look like? It is, as I mentioned, 112 credit hours total, and it is a highly engaging, intensive program. It's all in person. So nothing is online, nothing is blended. It is all in person here at the downtown Chicago campus. And classes can be held anywhere between the hours of 9 and 6. I will say first year is definitely more course intensive, and you'll see as we look at the course sequence what that looks like. But first year, you should be in class about 3 to 4 days per week on campus. And then second, third, and fourth year, about 2 to 3 days a week. And again, it's not all day. For example, you might have class 9 to noon and 1 to 4 on one day, and then just 1 to 4 the next, and then just the morning the third day. So it really varies depending on what year you are in the program and when classes are being offered. One thing that is consistent, though, is that your 5th year will be a year-long full-time paid internship, and internship can be anywhere in the country. So we often do have students that move for their internship year. It's very common because it's a nationwide match process. And I can talk more about the training process here in a little bit, but just know that that 5th year is a full-time paid internship. Students can work, but it does have to be something that's flexible and part-time. We do not recommend students work full-time. I don't see how it's possible. And if students try, they're often not successful. Part-time is reasonable, and it's reasonable to do just as long as you know that you've got classes during the day and the coursework really should be your focus. and job can be anything supplemental. I will say it is difficult too once you begin to do practicum to work because, in addition to classes, you're also doing your practicum for 16 to 20 hours a week, and that's off campus. So that would be in addition to work as well as your classes and then research experience. So, as you can imagine, it does get very busy. We can take transfer credit. So, students can come to us with a master's or previous PsyD credit, and we can take up to 30 credits total. All credits must be approved, and in order to get them approved, we do require syllabi. Don't send those to me now. We can offer you a pre-admission audit. I'm happy to look at transcripts and give you an idea about what might come over based on title, but in order for those to be officially reviewed, I do need syllabi from each class you want us to consider. And again, we'll review that after a student is accepted, and you can get an idea about what classes might come over and how many transfer credits you would get. Now, there are some classes that are not eligible for transfer. For example, your practicum, if you have it, would not be transferable. And there are others, but we also cannot accept classes that are older than 5 years at the time of the start or online. So if you did a fully online master's, we would not be able to accept those. If it was a master's degree that was synchronous, meaning you're meeting in person live, and then you're turning some assignments and you're doing an in-person component too, that might be okay. Feel free to check with me to see if your classes might be accepted. My information's all over the website, but I am Tina Simmons, and it's tsimmons10@nl.edu. That's the best way to get a hold of me. All right, let's look at the curriculum. I think this is really where things start to crystallize for applicants. So again, it's a 5-year program, and you might notice that in the first year, we do not have any practicum experiences, and that is by design. We really want to honor that first year experience. And it's tough. No matter a student's background, it is a tough program. We will challenge you. We will task you with learning new things about yourself, but we'll also support you. And to that end, we do not have any practicum experiences in year one. So you can see there, year one is about 32 credits. And for us, fall is 14 weeks long. Winter is 14 weeks long, and then summer is 7.5 weeks. So you do get breaks in between fall and winter. You get about a month, and between winter and summer, you get about 2 to 3 weeks. And then you'll notice summer is only 7.5 weeks. You will have class in May and June, but you will not have class in July and August. Now, I say that, but you might start your practicum. Practicum start date depends on the site. So some of our students start in July, some start in August. It really just depends on the site that you get placed at. Some of the classes I like to highlight in your first year are health and dysfunction. That is a very intensive version of abnormal psychology or psychopathology, and that is where you're covering the DSM and learning how to diagnose, learning about treatment planning, etc. You also will do child and adolescent development as well as you will also do your assessment courses. So the way that we break down assessment is cognitive assessment, psychometric theory, objective personality assessment, projective personality assessment, and then what's called integrated. And that is essentially prepping you for the second year when you begin your diagnostic practicum. So one of the things that students do and learn as psychologists are assessments. And that is where you are going to be doing IQ testing, personality assessment, things like that. You will practice them and learn about them in first year. And then in second year, you're actually conducting the assessments under supervision, of course, at your practicum site. Another class I like to highlight is going to be professionalization group. What that is, it is sort of a homeroom for grad students, and it's really an important class because what we do there, one of our administrative faculty members teaches that course, whoever you are assigned to. Currently, Dr. Horvath is teaching all sections. She's our program director. And what they do is really make sure that everyone knows what to do as a graduate student. We talk about professional comportment. We talk about research at the doctoral level. We just talk about the career in general and where you see yourself and how you're doing. And it's really our way of making sure students feel supported, especially as they transition into doctoral training. And Dr. Horvath, or whoever is teaching your professionalization group, that person will be your advisor in the first semester. And then after that, you'll get your permanent advisor, and that person will be with you until you complete the program. Another class I like to highlight, as I spoke earlier, we really value students having this introspection and looking inward. And one of the classes that we challenge them with is personal and professional development group. This is a group psychology course taught in an experiential way. And whoever teaches the course is going to run that group depending on their area of specificity. So for example, example, if you have a faculty member that specializes in client-centered, you will be in that client-centered group, and you're sort of living in that group experience for the duration of the course. It's a very cool course. I think too, it can be challenging for some because you're getting live feedback from your peers, from the faculty member about you. And it's meant to sort of uncover some things that, might come up when you're in a therapeutic relationship, but to have those come up in a safer way that is boundaried, that is supervised. And then if you're a student that really likes that course, you can TA for it in your second year after you complete it. Of course, you'll be finishing your ethics course in first year, as well as your clinical interviewing. And those first year courses are all required before you can go ahead and go to practicum. Now, practicum, let's talk training. We do have a training department. We currently have 3 individuals that are in our training department. They're full-time faculty. And what their job is really is to make sure our students are supported throughout the training journey. And so we make sure they know when to apply, how to apply, what a good resume looks like, how to interview. They should be looking at mock interviews. They also review the sites and make sure that the sites are what we would want for our students to have in terms of their training process. So it's a very involved thing. You will be talking about training as early as interview day because we do invite our training department to come to interview day. But officially, you will apply for your training experiences starting in winter of first year. And that is really where you're going to start to apply to some of those training sites, and you get placed. And again, we are very familiar with getting students in placement. You are very supported throughout this process of getting your training site. We also have about 200 sites in our database that students can apply to. So it's not like you're calling sites up like, hey, do you have any openings? It's very, very structured. And we make sure our students know when to apply, how, and where. Also, if you're not sure, like, wow, 200 is a lot. How do I decide where I want to apply? Again, that's where some of the advisement comes in. Say, like, you're somebody that wants to work with individuals with chronic pain. Great. We would talk with your faculty advisor and figure out maybe what sites would work for that. You can also talk to the training department and they can provide recommendations as well. So again, practicum is 16 to 20 hours a week over the course of 9 to 12 months. The minimum number of hours for diagnostic is 500, but students often do more. And there are some stipulations and some breakdowns within that. A certain number need to be direct client hours, etc. Also, in your second year, you are going to start your theory courses. And one of the things that I think students like about our program is that there is not one theoretical approach that we require everyone to use. It's not like everyone must be CBT. We teach you CBT, but we also teach you person-centered theory and therapy. We teach psychoanalytic as well as family systems. So you have this really in-depth knowledge of each of those theoretical approaches. So that way, when you're working with clients, you become very familiar with some of these different techniques. So those are the 4 that we teach in our program. You will also start your training. You will also start your research coursework. So research for us is going to be statistics, research methods, and then you have a research elective. And what you're doing with this, you should really be thinking about your dissertation. You really should have an idea, honestly, upon application of what you might like to research for your dissertation. You do not have to have your project fully fleshed out with a proposal or anything like that, but have an idea. Maybe you're interested in working with employees and you're interested in job satisfaction and managerial leadership style. Great. Talk a little bit about that in your interview and be ready to answer the question, what might you like to research as a part of your dissertation? And so there you have it again. Year 2 is fall, winter, and summer, and you're looking at about 29.5 credits. Year 3, the big thing that you're starting is your therapy practicum. So you've completed diagnostic practicum and now you're starting therapy, which is another 16 to 20 hours a week over the course of 9 to 12 months. And we do require a minimum of 600 for therapy. Again, students often do more. And then you'll see what's called dissertation proposal development. That is the first course in your dissertation sequence. So we break it down into 4 blocks. You'll also see dissertation 1, 2, and 3. And again, those are courses that are associated with your dissertation, with your big research project. We give you guidance. Whoever teaches your dissertation proposal course is going to be your dissertation chair. We also require 2 readers. And as you see, each of those blocks you're registered for until you complete your dissertation. Ideally, you're finished over the course of those courses, but you have until the end of your internship to complete that. Some of the other courses you're taking in third year are cognitive and affective. You're taking psychopharmacology, so you're getting into some of the more science-heavy courses in third year. And then you also do what's called the scientific capstone. So I did not mention capstones, but So that is what your third year looks like for 29 and a half credits. Fourth year is 21 credits. And you might be thinking, great, it lightens up. And that's technically true. But the big thing you're doing in fourth year is applying to internship. Again, internship is a nationwide match process. It's really competitive, but Chicago is also the most competitive market for internship. So it definitely is something that we walk students through. Our students get placed, and they do get placed in Chicago, but it can be a stressful process. In fourth year, you're also finishing up your electives, and then you are doing your advanced practicum. Advanced is required, and that is 600 hours, and that can be a mix of diagnostic as well as therapy, just depending on the site and what you want to do for your career. So you're finishing your coursework. And then the last thing you're doing is your fifth year, and that is your full-time internship. I listed here, there are 2,000 hours that are required for internship. And actually, I have really good news that I'll talk about in a moment. And this is breaking news as of September 2025. It has to do with postdoc, but just know that there's an internship and there's a postdoc, and that's work that you would do after you graduate. Now, in the program, we also have capstone assignments built in. It's really important to us to make sure that students are progressing clinically, that students are progressing, with their knowledge and getting the grades they need. And one of the ways we assess that is through the clinical capstone. And so in your diagnostic practicum year, you will complete 2 clinical capstones. In your therapy, you'll do another 2. And then in your fourth year, you're doing what's called the science capstone. And that mirrors the EPPP as your licensing exam. And that is something that you will need to study for. You'll need to prep for it, and you need to pass that in order to go on to internship. And what's nice about it, again, it can be anxiety inducing, but it's also, we are constantly thinking licensure. Okay, we want to make sure our students are graduating and getting to licensure. And that's one of the ways that we make sure that they are retaining and, having that material at hand and readily available in their knowledge bank. So dissertation, I listed a little separate thing here. In your dissertation, what does it mean? Basically, you're coming up with a set of research questions and addressing them. And you will also do a literature review of the current literature. And then, of course, you will present your findings. This can be qualitative, experimental, quasi-experimental, case study. And you will help design that in conjunction with your dissertation chair. It is meant to be completed in 4 semesters, although again, it sometimes can take longer, and we don't hold you back from internship if you're not complete with your dissertation, although it's helpful if you're done. And then you do have to disseminate your research in order to finish that project. And when we say disseminate, that can be a dissertation defense. It can be a presentation at a conference. You could get it published, etc. And again, you'll work with your chair on that. I've also listed some sample dissertation topics here. One of the great things about a PsyD is that you are coming in and able to decide for yourself what you want your dissertation to be. So you're not working on the research that your faculty member is an expert in. You are kind of reverse engineering it. You're picking what you want to research for your dissertation, and you're inviting folks on who have that subject matter knowledge to help you along with your project. Okay, here's the good news, the breaking news as of September. So let's talk licensure. Of course, that's the whole goal of our program, right? Is to make sure that students can get licensed and work as clinical psychologists. And in order to do that, in order to sit for the licensing exam, you have to complete the coursework, of course. You've got to complete your internship, and you have to pass the EPPP. Now, each state has their own licensing requirement. And currently, there is a postdoctoral requirement where students would work for a year after their PsyD and then sit for licensure. But as of 2026, Illinois will now allow postdoctoral fellows to take the psychology licensing exam, that EPPP, upon completion of the doctoral degree and prior to the completion of the postdoc fellowship. This is great news, meaning you can literally graduate and then apply to sit for the EPPP. It does take some time to get approved and all of those different things, but what this means is our graduates are going to be able to sit for licensure sooner, and that is a good thing. You also, once you are licensed, will need to sit for continuing education units to keep your license up. Now, where do students work? Could be anywhere that requires a clinical psychologist. Oftentimes, and the biggest one we see is private practice. We also see a lot of folks that work in child psychology, in hospitals, university counseling, as staff psychologists, as clinical supervisors. Of course, they can be a professor as well. I think some folks think because you have a PsyD, you can't teach. That's not true. We definitely have PsyD that are teaching, not just in our program, but in many different undergrad and grad programs. You can also work for the military and VA or community mental health. So our graduates are doing a lot of different, really unique, interesting things. And I included the median wage here because oftentimes students want to know, of course, about the return on investment. So the median wage from 2024, which is most recent, is 95,830 annually. And that is from ONET Online, which is a government-run website. Currently, we have 12 faculty members, and I'm showing, of course, the first slide here are our administrative faculty. And what that means is in addition to teaching a few courses, they also do things like run the training department or run the program. So Dr. Leah Horvath is our program director. She's been with ISPP for 19 years plus. And then I've listed her expertise here. She has expertise in CBT, DBT, and working with clients with eating disorders. And then Dr. Rivers, Lopez, and Pinney make up our training department. And I've listed some of their specialties there. I think it's very important when researching programs to look at the faculty. Again, as a PsyD applicant, you're not coming in underneath a faculty member. So you're not like, oh, great, Dr. Rivers does geek therapy. That's what I want to do, only work with her. You're being accepted into the program, and then you're working with all of the faculty. So you don't have to just necessarily work with one person, and they don't have to be accepting students at a certain point in time. You're sort of accepted, and then, things work out from there. That said, it's very important, I think, in your application materials to list faculty members you might like to work with. So definitely be paying attention to that, which is why I included some of their expertise. Also, this information and a longer bio is on our website. So be sure to review that. And of course, I'll send it to you if you get invited to interview. These are some of our other core faculty members. These are some of our other faculty members, and I will highlight some of their interests. Dr. Biederman, she is interested in psychoanalytic psychology as well as feminist psychology and assessment. Dr. Igbino-san is interested in DBT and psychoanalysis and exposure-based interventions for anxiety disorders. Dr. Kura is our child and adolescent psychology concentration chair. So she's interested in child and family and couples. And Dr. Mann runs our health psychology concentration and is also interested in feminist psychology. Dr. Tan will be joining us as of January 2026, and her expertise is in neuropsychology and health psychology. Dr. Vitalis, we call her our researcher, our scientist. She is interested in biobases and research. Dr. Warner is our most tenured ISPP faculty member who has been with us since 1984, and her expertise is in client-centered and group therapy. Finally, Dr. Zakowski runs our trauma concentration, and she is interested in trauma and refugee psychology as well as international psychology. So these are our current faculty members. Of course, we also have adjunct faculty members, but core means that they can chair committees, chair dissertations, and they teach. Of course, we do have student services as well. So we're a part of National Louis, and these are shared resources. And NLU is just a fabulous place to work and to be a student. I'm very impressed with the resources that they provide our students, including counseling. Everybody in the university can have access to free counseling for a certain number of sessions per year. And that is not internal. So it's not like our ISPP PsyD students are running it. It's an externally contracted thing. So my students can receive those services as well. We also, of course, have a Department of Student Accessibility resources, and they can establish accommodations for students. We have a Thrive Center, and they provide a lot of information to students, and they can connect you to resources related to housing, financial literacy, legal aid, childcare. And we also have a food pantry as a part of the university. We have a career services department called Career Bridge. Of course, we have our own clinical psychology training department. There's learning support, which offers free tutoring in both writing and statistics, and that can be on campus or via Zoom. And then we have LITS, which is our technology help desk, and that just sort of scratches the surface of some of the resources that we have, but wanted to provide that there. I'm really proud of this slide. We have a newsletter that we come out with 3 times a year. And basically what we do is highlight some of our students as well as alumna. And it's really cool. You get to see also any faculty announcements. You can see what our students and alum have been up to, any presentations. So I encourage you to click here. It'll take you to our website and it'll list all of our recent newsletters. So let's talk tuition and financial aid. And I'll start with tuition. Tuition is $11.62 a credit hour, and we're 112 credits total. We also have some fees, including Tavera, which is a part of the training department and tracks students' hours, and that's a one-time fee of $215. We also charge $175 a semester for university fees, as well as a UPass fee of $120 a semester, which is optional. UPass is your unlimited train ticket. So you can get on the CTA or the L if you want to sign up for that, but it is optional. Also optional is our student health insurance. At the current rate is $2,688 a year. And again, that is optional. And so if you break it down, I really like to give you the full cost because I want to make sure students know what they're looking at. And it's broken down there. We like to estimate about 132, 33,000 for the entire program. And if you add in some of those optional fees, you're looking at about 146,924 for the entire PsyD. Keeping in mind that's the whole cost over the 5 years, and you're charged by year depending on how many credits you're in. So it's definitely more expensive the first couple of years. By the last year, you're just paying 3 credits and some of the fees. So let's talk a little bit about funding. And I want to be very clear that the government is changing federal financial aid a little bit. And so I've included a link here that does list some changes for 2026. And again, things are changing and I don't know if they are fully cemented in yet as I'm recording this in September 2025. So great news is that we do have a financial aid department here. And more specifically, we have somebody who is an expert in PsyD financial aid. So he works with all of our PsyD students. His name is John out of our Tampa campus, and he works very closely with our students to make sure that they know what they qualify for. But the current rates are going to be here, and that is for FAFSA, so the free application for federal student aid. And that would be your student loans. I will say, though, graduate school is different from undergrad, where that is tied to your parents' income potentially or how much you make. In grad school, it's just based on the fact that you are in school. And the reasons why students don't qualify are things like drug-related felonies, or if you were a male student and didn't register for the draft. Those are some of the reasons you wouldn't qualify for federal financial aid. All right, we also have some scholarships. The biggest one is our Director's Scholarship, which is a 25% discount on tuition. We typically have about 10 of those a year to give away, and those are awarded to the top students in each cohort. And you don't apply for that. That is based on an applicant's entire profile. And then we also have some smaller ones for 5,000, including community care, workplace development, and leadership, and those you could apply for. Those are ISPP specific scholarships. There are also NLU scholarships, including alumni scholarships, scholarships for heroes, so folks in the military and first responders. There are donor funded scholarships. And then, of course, there are outside scholarships as well. We do have teaching assistantships and work study positions available. Many students do that to help pay for their education, and they would work, with our faculty members helping them run their course, or they would do work study. Obviously, work study is more common in first year because you can't TA until you've taken a course, but you can do that starting in your second year. There are some loan repayment options here. I have listed them, including the National Health Service Corp. And again, those might be changing just depending on, what the government decides to do with graduate financial aid. But I did want to list those links here. And again, you can have access to this presentation on our website or if you contact me. So let's talk about how to get accepted and what the application looks like. So we do take applications through what's called Psychology CAS. That is our application platform. They charge an application fee of $80 for the first program you apply to, and then $60 for any additional. They do a fee waiver, so I encourage you to check out this fee waiver information and apply early to those. We require a personal statement, and it should be about a 2 to 4 page personal/professional statement, which is a self-appraisal of the qualifications for the profession. So what does that mean? Really, you should be telling the committee why PsyD versus counseling versus PhD, previous experience, what you're doing now, how this degree would help you. It should also be a self-assessment of your strengths and weaknesses and reason for wanting to pursue this degree. So strengths, maybe you have a passion for it. Maybe you're a psych major. Maybe you have some experience. You have personal ties to it. All of that is relevant. Weaknesses, that is an opportunity for you to address any potential gaps in your training. So maybe you had a rough semester, maybe you switched from biology to psychology, any of those things. You can address that. We would encourage you to address that in your personal statement. And we think that shows self-awareness. And I think those are some of the qualities that the committee is looking for. And so again, that's 2 to 4 pages. And by the way, all of this will be submitted into Psychology CAS. We also require a resume or career summary, aka CV. I am not fussy with how you submit that. It just needs to be a resume. We also require 3 letters of recommendation. So there will be a spot in Psychology Cast where you can enter in your recommenders' email addresses, and they will get a request from what's called Web Admit to fill that out. And we're asking for the form in Web Admit as well as a personalized letter. We do require at least one letter from a faculty member that has taught you for class, not somebody that works as a faculty member, but somebody you had for class who can talk to your ability as a student. If you cannot get that because it's been some time, or maybe you went to a large school, TAs are acceptable. Or if you can't get that, we do. Or if you can't get that, we do require a small statement as to why it is you can't get a letter. Just give us some context. And again, we require 3, although you are welcome to submit 4. We also require official transcripts from all schools attended. So undergrad, grad, transfer credit, all of that. GRE scores are optional. So if you want to submit those, feel free, but you do not have to. When we're looking at your previous education, you should have a bachelor's degree. Now, it's very common to be in progress. So it's possible that you are finishing up your bachelor's degree, but we do need you to, of course, have that bachelor's degree conferred before you begin the PsyD program. The minimum GPA we're looking at is 3.0 from undergrad or 3.25 or better from your graduate degree. And if you're an international student, we require a course-by-course evaluation by a third-party evaluation company such as WES or ACE. We also have some foundation courses that you need to have before you begin the program, not necessarily before you apply, but before you start. And those include Intro to Psychology or General Psych, Psychopathology, Abnormal or Maladaptive, however it's whatever it's on your transcript, Statistics or Research Methods, and then 2 additional courses in psychology of any kind. And those need to be, again, with a grade of B or better. If you're not sure if you've taken them or if one would count, feel free to email me and I'm happy to review those transcripts for you. Deadlines. Actually, as I'm recording this, the application to Psychology Cats just opened up today. So that opens on September 4th. Our priority deadline is November 5th, and our general deadline is January 5th. We do use what I call holistic admissions. And what I mean by that is it's me. I am putting your applications together. I'm sending it to faculty. It is a manual process. There's no AI, there's no algorithm that's incorporated with that. But to that end, it is manual. And it can take a little bit longer sometimes to get through applications. But I think on the other end, it's so worth it. I think we find students that are really, really good fits for ISPP. We are great fits for them. I invite you, once your application is completed in PsyCast, email me. Get in my email. I welcome personal connection. It helps you stand out from the pack. Again, we get about 265 applications, so definitely contact me if you want to stand out. We also use rolling admission. So what that means is if you apply early, you'll start to hear about interviews and eventually acceptance earlier. It's not like we hold all of our admissions decisions until a certain point in time. So once you apply, it's about 2 to 3 weeks to hear back about an interview invite. We will get that scheduled. I'll coordinate with you and you'll come to one of our virtual interview days. And then once you interview, it's about 2 to 3 weeks to hear back about acceptance. And if you want to accept our offer of admission, it's $150 tuition deposit, and that is due by April 15th. And that is it. That is me. I'm the Senior Enrollment Specialist here at ISPP. I've personally been here since 2009, so I've helped literally thousands of applicants at this point, and it's my favorite thing. I, again, welcome you to contact me. My contact information is there below, and I think this is a link to my calendar, so feel free to connect with me if you haven't already. I am happy to answer any questions you have. And thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to see your application and I look forward to meeting you. Bye.